Greetings. I hope everyone is safe and well wherever you are staying. I'm Bobby Fieseler, and I'll be reading a section of my book, Tinderbox, The Untold Story of the Upstairs Lounge Fire and the Rise of Gay Liberation. Tinderbox is a work of nonfiction about a notoriously unsolved arson fire that took place at a gay bar in 1973 New Orleans and claimed 32 lives. The section that I'm going to read is of the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, and it will feature a very important historical figure, a legendary queer rights activist named Stuart Butler, who was actually spurred to a life of political engagement as a consequence of surviving and bearing witness to the apathy and to the carnage that followed the Upstairs Lounge tragedy. So this is in honor of Stuart Butler, who actually passed away, and many people are grieving in New Orleans right now. Stuart died in his sleep at the age of 89 in mid-March after a very successful life in securing anti-discrimination protections for queer folk in the city that he loved. So this is for Stuart. Chapter 5, Mayhem. Dusk, June 24th, 1973. Up Iberville, at the next corner, Royal Street, Stuart Butler and his lover Alfred Doolittle drank and caroused at Wanda's, the Gene Davis-owned hustler bar. Their tempers had cooled after Stuart's little flare-up with Alfred on the upstairs lounge staircase, and they were back to being relaxed in each other's company. More drinks, of course, helped to pacify the rage. Sirens blared a few blocks away, but Stuart thought nothing of them at first. Alfred was in good spirits, seemingly pleased that Stuart had finally listened to his entreaties to leave that upstairs lounge bar. Sounds of alarm grew, interrupting their conversation as a red fire truck sped within feet of Stuart and Alfred, the engine from the central fire station screeching as it plowed a taxi aside to reach the one-way of Iberville Street. Down at the next intersection, nearer to the scene of horror, a district chief of the fire department waved that engine forward. Metal, scraped metal, as the truck smashed yet another car to the curb and rushed towards the upstairs lounge in a blur. Something horrific clicked in Stuart's head, a realization overriding the warm buzz of booze. Alfred, crazy fucking Alfred, had been right about leaving the upstairs lounge. Quote, Alfred didn't, but I went out there on the street, recalled Stuart. I kind of approached it slowly, he said, and all this, gradually. As Stuart headed toward the lounge, Roger Nunez passed and entered Wanda's from the direction of Walgreens. Roger made the strange announcement, Thank God, I just made it from the fire. Roger's blackened appearance, covered in what looked to be soot, likely provoked this declaration, a means to explain his condition and win sympathy from fellow patrons who might otherwise regard him strangely. Roger kept repeating these words as he wandered into and out of the bar to peer down Iberville towards the upstairs lounge. He kept saying, Thank God, I just made it from the fire. When someone later asked how he escaped the burning bar, Roger replied that he, quote, got out the back exit door, perhaps wagering that no one inside Wanda's could discern how his previous front door ejection from the upstairs lounge by the bartender Buddy Rasmussen had made this means of egress impossible for him. Clearly, Roger's story was evolving with the scene down the way. A smell like charcoal increased as Stuart Butler neared the flashing lights. The walk, 145 steps from Wanda's, took less than 2 minutes. What Stuart encountered looked like a war zone. The street reflected the blowout of an explosion. Fire leaped from windows, and smoke wafted up bodies. with friends pointing and officials yelling. Everything seemed to shout for Stewart's attention. Few details connected or made sense. Fire engines stretched from street to sidewalk, which was littered with bits of glass and flakes of ash and pieces of acrid flesh and pools of human fluid. Drunken sightseers ambled forth curiously between the casualties as firemen and policemen tried to hold them back. Indeed, a virtual cross-section of New Orleans society coalesced on Iberville, hugging the sides of the street. Guests exited from two pornographic movie houses near the burning bar. They coalesced with businessmen wandering from the Marriott's Levy Bar or sauntering from the upscale Hotel Monteleone. Gripped by the flames, their eyes reflected a mixture of horror and childlike fascination. Stewart Butler watched as cinders fluttered like bright moths in the air, threatening to light the entire French Quarter. I'm Bobby Fieseler, and that was an excerpt from my book, Tinderbox, The Untold Story of the Upstairs Lounge Fire and the Rise of Gay Liberation. And that excerpt featured the legendary gay rights activist, the self-described political animal, Stewart Butler, who passed away in March. He was the most famous of all of the Upstairs Lounge survivors, a man who channeled his fuel and grief into a life of generosity and engagement, and who fought for decades and succeeded to secure anti-discrimination protections for queer folk in New Orleans. R.I.P. Stewart Butler. Stay safe, everyone.